Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Ethereal Wife. Am I the a-hole for taking away the keys of our house from my husband's ex-wife? A couple of days ago, I came home from a work meeting and was unpleasantly surprised to find my husband's ex-wife wandering around the house fresh out of the shower with only a towel wrapped around her body. I felt absolutely hysterical, though I didn't show it. She had the keys because her daughter, who is also my husband's daughter, spends more time at our house than at hers, so she occasionally comes to visit her. This time, I didn't hold back. I demanded that she give me the keys and told her she wasn't allowed to come over while I was not home. My husband was asleep in the bedroom and had no idea that his ex-wife was even in the house. When I asked my stepdaughter why her mother had stayed, she simply said that she wasn't planning to leave until her dad woke up. My mind immediately interpreted that as an attempt at seduction. In short, I took away the house keys and told her that it wasn't necessary for her to come see her daughter on weekdays when my stepdaughter went to her house already on weekends. I also told her that if she needed to come over for something important, she had to ask for permission. She called me crazy, but my husband backed me up, which was the only reason she eventually left without making a scene. Today, I started wondering if maybe I overreacted and handled things immaturely, but at the same time, I don't want her around my 4-month-old baby when I'm not home. So, am I the a-hole for taking away the keys of our house away from her? OP, you are most definitely not the a-hole. What the hell is wrong with this woman? Just going into your house to quote-unquote visit her daughter, but decides to take a shower and wander around the house in a towel? I'm sorry, but kicking her out is the minimum amount of reaction I'd be comfortable with in this situation. Good on your husband for backing you up as well, and I think the both of you need to sit down with your stepdaughter and tell her that her keys are for her, and not for her mom to just come and go as she pleases. And considering this whole situation must have been incredibly infuriating, I think you handled it in a really good way. You immediately set very clear boundaries. You're not allowed in my house unless it's an emergency and you have previously asked for permission. And she can complain about it all she wants. It is your house, they are your rules, and that's it. So again, definitely not the a-hole. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? How would you have reacted if it was you? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. New Tomatoes 9819 says, you're definitely not the a-hole, and she was trying to seduce your husband in my opinion. She should have never been given a key, and her reaction of getting mad says everything about her intentions. And OP responds, thanks for making me think I'm not completely crazy. Best Imagination 412 says, why did she have keys in the first place, and how old is the daughter? Bigger question is, why was the husband asleep and she was showering? Sounds suspect. Can't help but think you arrived after their activities. And OP responds, she always had the keys in case of an emergency while we were traveling. My stepdaughter is 17 years old. And the last thing, my husband had spent the night awake at work, so he slept all day. Although I also thought like you at first, I immediately checked the cameras I have in some areas of the house to monitor my baby, including in the bedrooms. It's obvious that she did it to annoy me in some way. I just didn't think she had that kind of childish behavior at her age. Crispy Bacon says, how often does she swing by for a shower when you are not around? And why was the daughter so chilled about her being there? Sounds like something she does often? Sounds like a massive clash in values and, or for a lack of better words, she put your husband to sleep. Either way, not the a-hole, but boundaries need to be set. And OP responds, she didn't usually come to the house much before, but lately she seems very concerned about being present in her daughter's life. And my stepdaughter wasn't that calm. In fact, she was the one who sent me a message saying that her mother was in my home, although I never thought I would find her in a towel. Additional information from OP's comments. So about the cameras. Of course my husband knows about the cameras, but in fact he was sleeping with the baby all morning without even realizing that she was home. Also, according to my stepdaughter, she had come from work to check on her and told her she was going to take a shower without any other explanation. And I understand the skepticism, but you all must know that my husband despises his ex-wife enough to the point that he hasn't reported her for the sake of their daughter. In fact, this time he threw her out even more angrily than I was. Honestly, I doubt my husband wants to be around his ex when they've already had several legal problems. She and my husband had a legal battle for custody because she wanted to move to another state and wanted to take my stepdaughter without my husband's consent. It has been a long conflict because she literally almost kidnapped their daughter, and if it weren't for me acting as a mediator on occasions, he would have already sued her for it. Also, yes, the house belonged to both of them before they divorced. Although legally, it always belonged only to my husband. She lived with him. She lived here for 6 years before they divorced. That's why I was always embarrassed to take the keys away from her before. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, that she needs to set really harsh boundaries, and from that edit, we know that OP's husband probably wasn't cheating. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Hi, it's me, the woman who found her husband's ex-wife in her house wearing a towel. I've seen that things have gotten pretty out of control, to the point where it spread all over the internet, so I'm here to clear some things up and give some updates. First of all, we've changed all the locks, and although my stepdaughter has her own key, she's not going to risk losing her father's trust after the serious talk they had. After my husband started the process for a restraining order, his ex-wife's sister reached out to us. She told us that the ex-wife was feeling empty and threatened because of me. I've been living with my husband in this house for 3 years, and she had never done anything like this before, so it seemed extremely strange to me that she would pull this kind of stunt right after I gave birth to my son. Anyway, my husband's ex-sister-in-law assured us that she was going to receive psychological treatment and that we could move forward with the restraining order. She just asked us to understand that the ex-wife seemed to be falling into some kind of depression that was preventing her from thinking clearly. As for why I feel so bad and why I haven't reacted more aggressively, I have an explanation. Since giving birth a few months ago, I've felt slow, dumb, and a bit confused about everything. I never had serious trouble defending myself in English before, but now I do. And my emotions are all over the place, leaving me feeling distressed in any dramatic situation. But to wrap things up, I'd like to clarify a few points. 1. No, my husband has not cheated on me with the woman he's been having issues with for 11 years. I checked the security cameras and he was asleep next to our child during the hour his ex-wife was showering downstairs. The bathroom is pretty far from the bedroom. 2. My stepdaughter was barely involved in her mother's plan. In fact, she was the one who alerted me that her mom was in the house and that she had no idea why. Normally, her mom would let her know before visiting, and only if my husband wasn't home. And 3, yes, that woman only did it to get under my skin and make herself feel better. Spoiler, she won't be coming near my family again. In any case, thank you for the support and all the advice. I'm glad to know that there are still understanding people who have stood by me in a moment when my emotions faltered and made me doubt myself. Well, it'll be good on you for setting boundaries, and that restraining order will come in handy. So here's wishing you guys the best. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from this subreddit Am I Overreacting, and it's by user AggressiveCost2007. Am I overreacting? My boyfriend said I'm the prettiest when I shut up in front of his friends. My boyfriend, 25 male, and I, 22 female, were invited to a birthday party of his friend. The people at this event were all close friends of his from his contract job, and I barely know these people. Everything was going fine and my boyfriend was clearly having a great time. But at some point, I was telling a story from my school days when my boyfriend interrupted and said, "You know, OP is prettiest when she shuts up." Everyone laughed and my boyfriend just kept going. You guys don't know what I go through. She never stops talking. I swear, sometimes I tune her out for my own sanity, or something along those lines. I'm usually really introverted, but when I warm up to someone, I'm the type to talk a lot. So when he said these words, I felt so embarrassed and humiliated, especially since he said it so casually in front of people I don't even know. I tried to brush it off, but I got quiet after that. Later, after the party was over, I told him how hurtful his comment was. He rolled his eyes and said I was being too sensitive and that it was just a joke and I was making a big deal out of nothing. He said I embarrassed him by acting cold for the rest of the night and that I should learn to take a joke. He also told me if I couldn't learn to lighten up, maybe I shouldn't come to events with his friends anymore, even though he was the one who asked me to come in the first place. I feel so awful and confused. Am I in the wrong for getting upset and killing the vibe? No, OP, of course you're not. Your ex-boyfriend, I'm assuming he's your ex-boyfriend by now because he's a effing idiot, is absolutely in the wrong. Like, there are a bunch of red flags here. He humiliates you in front of his friends. He uses you as a punchline. And when you tell him that he's hurt your feelings, he brushes you off, rolls his eyes, and says that you are too sensitive and can't take a joke and that you're making a big deal out of nothing. Then he pulls out the old blame shifting by saying that you embarrassed him by acting cold. And the cherry on top is that you should learn to take a joke. Honestly, OP, this guy isn't even worth the time to write a post about him on Reddit. Just dump him and move on to something a lot better, like being single, because between this guy and nothing, I'd choose nothing. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Crazy Cat Lady 2504 says, he is an abusive a-hole. I had an ex like that. Never liked it when I spoke out about things. Any man who basically tells you to shut up when you're just telling a story about something is not someone you should be with. Leave him. It only gets worse with the controlling behavior. Sudden Pomegranate 95 says, this is the start of abuse. My dad acted like this with my mother. She was always the butt of his jokes and everyone laughed, but we hated it. It started out like this and then went on to fat jokes, bad in bed jokes, nagging jokes, etc., etc. Everyone thought it was harmless fun, but he was an alcoholic and beating us all behind closed doors. My mom always laughed along and I resent her for it, honestly. I know it sounds awful, but I viewed her as a very weak woman and it's caused me and my siblings to have very toxic relationships and anger issues. People like to brush things off and give them the benefit of the doubt because it's just a joke. It's only a joke if both parties involved find it funny. If not, it's just an insult. I can genuinely see this going really sinister. A Clownfish fan says he does not like you. That is what I gathered from this story. There's people who wouldn't say that about you. Sorry that happened. And No Strawberry 8392 says, you aren't overreacting. You, as most people who are posting on this subreddit, are underreacting. You should have told him to F off and left when he said that to you. It's absolutely ridiculous. You think that letting anyone speak or treat you like that could be in any way okay. Dump him, and when you do, grant his wish and don't tell him why. No words, just leave. Well, the community agrees that OP needs to break up with that jerk, so let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I broke up with him. We had been dating for 2 years and it was the first time he'd acted that way. So I was genuinely conflicted and I wasn't sure if the joke really flew over my head. But I decided to leave. It takes me a lot of effort to come out of my shell and I feel uncomfortable to stay with someone who doesn't like that. My self-esteem is usually really low, but this time I spoke up for myself once in a long time. We broke up over text. It sucks since he kept bringing up all of his contract job friends over me again and again. These are people he acquainted with less than 7 months ago, so that alone told me some things. I won't be missing anything since he ended our text with, "Bye, I don't give an F." Thanks for all the sweet comments. At the time I wrote the post, I was feeling a lot down and cried a lot. I'm a bit sensitive, so I teared up reading some comments. Thanks again. I hope everyone has a nice day. Heart. Well, OP, good for you for standing up for yourself and good riddance to that jerk. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. Now let's move on to the last story today that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user TwinkleDrift66. Am I the a-hole for refusing to clean up after my brother? I, 19 female, still live at home with my parents and my older brother, 22 male. He's been home from college for a few months now and, not gonna lie, it's been kinda annoying. He treats the house like a hotel and just expects things to be done for him. He'll leave his dirty dishes in the sink, drop his laundry in the hallway instead of the basket, and just in general act like cleaning up after himself is someone else's job. My mom babies him a lot, so she usually just does it, but she was out of town for a few days and I was not about to pick up after him. I told him straight up that he's grown and can do his own dishes and laundry. He got all pissy and was like, "Why do you care? Just leave it." But like, it's our house. I don't want to live in a mess just because he's lazy. So I just ignored it and let everything pile up. By day 3, the sink was full, his clothes were on the floor, and the living room looked like a war zone. But then, suddenly, he was mad at me for not helping out. I told him that's funny coming from someone who hasn't lifted a finger in months. He called me selfish and said, "Family helps each other." But in my opinion, that only works when it goes both ways. My mom says I should have just cleaned up to avoid conflict, but I feel like that's just enabling him. Am I the a-hole? No, OP, you're not the a-hole. You are absolutely right. What your mom is doing is raising a 22-year-old enabled baby. Oh, just pick it up to avoid conflict. What a passive and frustrating way to live that must be. Just avoid any kind of conflict and stick your head in the sand because it's easier to let just things slide because somebody screams louder. That's like letting Twitter run your life. No, OP, good for you for drawing boundaries. Your brother should be able to clean up after himself, and his mess is not your responsibility. Not the a-hole. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments. Candyland Canada says, the only reason that you should touch his messes is to dump them on his head. If mom wants to create and foster a problem, then that's her problem. Shame on her for telling her daughter to clean up after her son to keep the peace. Mom's a sexist who is abetting inequality, not the a-hole. Be Environmental 6299 says, not the a-hole. Your mom is not doing your brother any favors acting like his housemate. Eventually, he will meet somebody to move in with or marry, and chances are they will expect him to pull his own weight and clean up after himself. You certainly should not have to clean up after your older brother to keep the peace. Your mom and brother are the a-holes. Working Paramedic 912 says, not the a-hole. The best way to learn is to feel or smell the bad stuff. Ugh. And OP's comment, LMAO, glad I'm not the only one who thinks this is crazy. Like, bro, you're 22, not 12. Pick up your damn socks. Alright, well, the community agrees. OP is not the a-hole and the brother is just being enabled. So let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. So, a lot has happened since my post. My mom came back from her trip and of course, the first thing she noticed was the mess. My brother immediately started complaining about how I refused to help and made the house disgusting. Like, dude, you made the mess. At first, my mom kinda took his side and was like, why didn't you just clean up a little? But I told her straight up that I'm not his maid and I was tired of him acting like a guest in his own home. I even showed her the texts where he literally told me to just leave it when I asked him to do his own dishes. And guess what? She actually agreed with me. She told him he needed to start acting like an adult and clean up after himself. He got all sulky and locked himself in his room. But the next morning, I woke up to the sink empty and the living room looking normal again. Now he's barely speaking to me, but honestly, I don't even care. If the silent treatment is the prize for not being his personal maid, I'll take it. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Y'all were right. He needed a reality check. Well, OP, I gotta say, I'm only hoping that it was actually your brother, the one who did the dishes and cleaned up after himself, and not your mom after he locked himself in the room like a toddler throwing a tantrum. But either way, it's not your problem anymore, and if he continues down this road, it's only gonna be worse for him. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe